Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Today I'm super excited to have somebody on that I've already spoken to on another interview before, another podcast for another company, and probably 2 years ago or something. We were trying to figure it out beforehand, but I've got Kathleen Booth on here, who is currently the SVP of Marketing and Growth at Pavilion. I'm going to go read down through all your credentials now, Kathleen, in terms of what you've done over the years. You don't interrupt me. No, I'm joking, but I've got so Kathleen throughout her career has been an advisor, a senior vice president of marketing, a CMO, an advisory board member, a VP of marketing again, a startup mentor, consultant again, VP of marketing at an agency, which then also the agency then turned into a media company, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Owner of an agency herself, got back into consulting, and then again now is actually the SVP now of marketing and growth at Pavilion. So now I can take a breath. But welcome on the show, Kathleen. That's quite the career you've had.
I think I might have career ADD.
Oh,
Listening to you say all that, I was like, oh boy.
oh dear. But I had somebody on just like an hour ago, same, and we were talking about I did the exact same thing, and she was like, "Oh Jesus Christ, Andy! Like, what? Where did you get all this information from?" I was like, it's all in your LinkedIn
It's in the
profile."
link. Exactly. LinkedIn doesn't forget.
No, but if you look at mine, it's the exact same thing. I said I think we all have sort of this ADHD. As soon as we see something shiny, it's quickly go that way. But that's if you work in tech and you work in consulting and so on, that's just how it is, right? It's many projects. The projects maybe last a couple of years, and you jump onto the next project. It's gone to the next stage of growth, whatever it might be, right? That's the life of a marketer nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us, before we get into it, tell us about. I know about Pavilion, but maybe people that are listening don't. Tell us a bit about Pavilion, what Pavilion does, and what's going on there at the minute.
Sure. Pavilion is the premier global private community for go-to-market executives in B2B tech. And so we have about 10,000 members around the world. In over 450 different locations. We have 50 active local chapters, and our members are the executive leaders within the go-to-market team in their company. And so we define that as the CEO, founder, as well as the VP level and above heads of sales, marketing, customer success, and revenue operations. And then sometimes partnerships is also thrown in there. But really, we exist to help our members be successful in their careers. And so we do that in three ways. It's the support of your peers within the community. We have career acceleration programs, which is education and tools and resources. And then we have in-person events where we help people connect with others in confidential settings to share challenges and learn from others who've been there, done that, and can help them see around corners.
No, it's a great resource. I mean, I've been a member for a few years, and the when it was back in the Revenue Collective days before it rebranded to Pavilion, but I've seen it like go from one growth rate to another, like it's crazy. So how many members did you say across the world there?
About 10,000. And yeah, it's funny because I joined as a member back in 2019 before I worked for the company, and it definitely has changed. When I first joined, I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and there was no local chapter here. I then became the original co-chair of the D.C. chapter. This is before I was employed here. Now I work for the company. We have a thriving chapter in DC. We have 50 chapters all over the world. So it's been a fun journey to watch and
Cool,
be a part of.
cool. How big is your own team there?
13 people. So I lead the revenue team, which is marketing and sales.
Nice, 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 nice. 13 people. So when Sam took you on, was there an existing go-to-market team already? Was it just him? How was it like?
Yeah, we had an amazing VP of marketing who predecessed me, and she is actually still with the company. She is our chief of staff now, and she's actually my peer on the leadership team. And this is a really, I think, unique situation because when I first heard, oh, I'm coming to take this role, and the person who had it before me is still at the company, there's always a little bit of like, oh, how's that going to go? But actually, her name's Carly Palace. She's amazing. I have learned so much from her, and she now runs what I would call sort of the whole post-sale organization. So she has product operations. She has our learn team, which is like another form of a product. and also is chief of staff. And so it's a great partnership. And I am like so grateful every day, actually, that she is still here because she carries a lot of institutional memory with her.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You've mentioned a couple of things here. It's actually interesting, and it's something that you write about quite a bit as well. Is more women on the executive team, right? And actually, how this podcast came about was because I put something out on LinkedIn that getting more women onto our podcast because it was very men heavy, right? It's like it's always the way, right? That's how I find, and actually I found over the years actually having more women on different podcasts that I would run, the results are always much better having women on. Like like seriously, the data. But if you just look at data by itself, the women episodes perform much better than the male episodes for I guess a few different reasons, but we won't get into that. But one of the things as well, I've been working in tech now for over a decade and working across numerous C-level teams, executive teams, and it's very like finding women at the top table is very few and far between. It sounds like at the Revenue Collective, but Pavilion, Pavilion, sorry, called the Revenue Collective. It sounds like you guys have a good mix there at the head table. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do. It's roughly 50-50, which has been really great. And Sam, our CEO, is a huge proponent of diversity and of elevating women. We actually have a sub community called the Women of Pavilion, and Sam was the one who pushed us this year to do a women's summit, which is the first time we've ever done it. And it was a huge success. And so, like, I'm fortunate that I work for a CEO who believes so strongly in supporting women in their executive careers.
I mean, I think like there needs to be more women at that top table, by the way. So I fully agree with that. And the question is, how do we get there? You know, that's one of those things I have no clue, right? Like really no clue. And I spoke with somebody about it last week. I spoke with a C-level from another business where their entire C-suite is men. And I said, this needs to change, you know, and he fully agreed with me. He was like, I fully agree, but I just don't know how. Whenever we go to look for one, all of the applicants we're getting in are men, right? Like it's just, what can we do? You know, like it's one of those things. I don't have an answer, but it's interesting, like, especially because you're so heavily involved in, for example, women in revenue. Like what do you think are the ways forward with this? How do we encourage it more? How do we push forward? Like what are your ideas there?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to the equation. One is I think that I'd love to see more organizations taking more of a deliberate approach to this, which is to say, not just relying on the applications that come in, but looking for qualified candidates through their networks, and through organizations, you know, like you mentioned Women in Revenue, which is an incredible organization. And so, like, if you're hiring a sales leader, reach out to organizations like that because they have very accomplished senior female leaders that they can connect you to. I think one side of it is like the deliberate approach that you take as a company. And then the other side of it, honestly, is resting with women themselves. Because I do think that women in general are probably less self-promotional and less willing to step forward and raise their hand than men are. And
Yeah.
there could be many reasons why that's the case, but I think it does somewhat rest on women to make themselves a part of the conversation, and to not be afraid to advocate for themselves and to submit their name for jobs and awards and other forms of recognition.
Yeah, that's something from a very like it's almost it's a societal thing. I see that as well. I have a daughter. I have a young daughter and a wife that's like an avid feminist as well. And the way that we bring her up, like she's quite young, she's 8, and with the way that we bring her up is like put your hand up, don't be afraid to put yourself forward. But it's almost inner. It's like it's not that she has it naturally. It's coming from the outside in terms of how they're taught from a young age or how the different if different kids fall into different roles. If it's a boy or a girl, you just automatically fall into a role and people treat you different. But I think your point there about like women just breaking through that, putting the hand up. I'm a white man saying this, so like I'll be shot for this. But I fully agree. Like I can't compare, but I fully agree with that. Just looking at my own family and looking at my own daughters, of like, put your hand up, push yourself forward.
Yeah,
It's
you
the
can't wait
only.
for somebody else to give it to you. You have to advocate for yourself. And this is true for anybody, not just women, of things you want in life. Like if you want something, you cannot wait for someone else to give it to you. You have to be the one that goes out and gets it. And great if the world is there to receive that request, is open to it, that's wonderful. But I just think like so much of it comes down to you taking ownership and having agency over your own career and the path that you're following. And those are the things that we can control as individuals, is our own actions. And so I'm a big believer that we've got to go after it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I say this to my team all the time. Like the only thing that's holding you back is you. And if you're not being undeniable, then you're doing the wrong thing. So just be undeniable in it. If you are undeniable, nobody can deny you of anything. So
love that.
Just, and it works. It works. Like if you're undeniable, nobody can say anything to you. It's
you wear them down.
Exactly. Basically. Yes.
Kids are really good at that, by the way. Kids are great at doing that to parents.
To wear you down.
To wear them down. Yeah, exactly.
No shit. No, that's how it goes. But hey, look, thanks for that. But so looking at the general go-to-market thing, right? So you talk a lot about go-to-market, and also you work a lot with go-to-market executives, and you run a go-to-market team yourself, right? What are some of the things that you see as important? That's actually the interesting reason why I asked you about this now as well, because I seen one of Sam's posts earlier this week. So Sam Jacobs is the CEO and founder of Pavilion, where he spoke about the old go-to-market team and the new form of go-to-market team. I don't know if you've seen it on LinkedIn, but the way that go-to-market is being run nowadays is very different to how it was in the past. And I feel as though everybody's talking about go-to-market. Like, what's your view on what a good go-to-market setup looks like?
Oh, that's such a good question. And, it's not something that can be answered in just a few sentences, but it's kind of become a buzzword. And I think, I don't know that I've seen anybody really define it well, but when I think about go-to-market, it's like, it's really what's the company's strategy for growth. And unfortunately, like I think in the past, when we've thought about growth, we've thought about it in very siloed terms. Like, what's our sales strategy? What's our marketing strategy? What's our pricing strategy? And the problem is that when we think of them in silos, then the solutions we come up for them are siloed, right? And this is why ever since I've been in the business, people have talked about problems with marketing and sales alignment. And I think that you can extend that to really any two departments working together. And so what go-to-market is really trying to solve is, how do we break those silos? How do we get good cross-functional alignment within our teams so that it's not 4 separate strategies, it's one company strategy, and we're all rowing together to accomplish the objectives we've identified as part of that strategy. And underlying that, I think, is this theme of the first team mentality, which is, your leadership team looking at each other as that first team, that team that you are most accountable to, and not like, hey, I'm the head of marketing, so I'm looking out for my marketing people, and I don't know about that sales team, right? Like, that's the genesis of a lot of the problems with go-to-market. And I think if we can achieve better cross-functional alignment, a lot of these other things kind of solve themselves. And so I don't think I really entirely answered your question, but that's how I think about it, is like, go-to-market is this euphemism for getting everybody together and focused on a singular strategy to achieve a singular goal and working in unison towards it.
Yeah, I fully 100% agree. 100% agree. And if I go back 10, 15 years, it was always, how many of these particular things are going to be directly marketing sourced? And that's 10 years ago, whatever. Now, if people still come to me and say, okay, marketing need to drive this amount of the pipeline. I'm like, does that mean that sales can't touch that? In the lead up, does that mean that sales are not allowed to go near it? And then we need to create silos between marketing and sales? Is that what you're telling me to do? But at the same time, you're telling me to connect with marketing and sales? How's that going to work?
Well, and don't even get me started on that, because like, I've run into this exact situation in the past where me as marketing, I paid for a company to have a presence at an event, and a bunch of salespeople came to it, and they surfaced a lot of great pipeline at that event. So like, who gets credit for that? And by the way, why are we arguing over who gets credit for that? Like, the company gets the money, and it should be the event that gets the credit, not the team that paid for it or the team that had boots on the ground. It's like, we're missing the point when we devolve into this level of argument.
Yeah, but it's like I need to know how much revenue is driven from LinkedIn last year. I need to know. You know? Jesus Christ, man! That's the issue with that is I put it's that your dog biting something in the background, kicking the fingers. So this is something that like is a daily battle. I would say for a lot of marketers still is that who gets credit for what, and in my opinion, it shouldn't matter
It shouldn't.
if the company's hitting target, who gives a shit? Like, okay, let's see what campaigns are working. Okay, we've managed to drive good conversations at a specific event or from a specific channel. We're managing to get good engagement, etc. Like, look at those metrics, right? Like, let's not like drill it down into one specific thing and say, okay, marketing delivered this amount of pipeline because we've seen that on LinkedIn they spent that amount of money and then they got a lead that came to the website and then maybe at some point in the future that lead then turned into an opportunity, which is like rarely the case, especially in high ticket sales, right? There's
Right.
like 25 touch points before even somebody has a conversation with them, right? So it's like you're preaching to the choir here when you say go to market is about getting everybody together that is in a customer facing role, whether that customer facing role is on the marketing side or on the sales side, but getting everybody together and looking to first of all create pipeline together and then looking to close that pipeline together. And then even beyond closing, how do we then support the CS team to get more out of expansion revenue, right?
Well, and the
But
reason these conflicts arise in the first place around like, how much money should we give marketing for this or that? And it's all because it's a way of that teams justify budgets. And it goes back to my point earlier about first team mentality, which is that like if you truly have a first team mentality, you're not fighting against sales or against CS for a share of budget. It shouldn't be a fight, right? Like it should be, we're all sitting at the table focused on our collective goal of bringing money into this company. And what do we all agree as a group is going to get us there? As soon as you have somebody on that team who isn't thinking in a first team way, who's protecting their team first or themselves first, that's when you get into these arguments over credit claiming, over horse trading, over who's going to get the headcount and who's going to get the budget. But in a good go to market motion and a good go to market leadership team, you should come into those budget discussions already all on the same page about like who gets the money and who gets the headcount, because it should make sense based on what you've all agreed the challenges are and what you've all agreed the goals are. And I think so some of that is like organizationally how you structure your team. Some of that is the process you use to get to the decisions, but a big piece of it is the people you hire and their attitude about their role as a leader within the company. And like if they're there for themselves or to protect their team and their silo, you're going to fail at achieving like world-class go to market. But if they're there to be a functioning part of a strong first team, then, and you have those other things in place, then, you should be unstoppable.
I also see it on the desk of the CEO as well. So it's up to the CEO to make sure that that's the way they're looking at the world. If you've got a CEO that's like, okay, I want to be able to track every single penny that's being spent down to a specific channel that's then leading back to revenue, may God be on your side, is all I'm going to
Yeah.
say. You'll spend your life trying to do it and you'll never get there.
And hint, if you're applying for jobs at that company, figure out if that's what the CEO is like before you take the job.
100%. 100%. All right, just changing the lane slightly because I'm just aware of your time here. I want to talk a bit about the time because we spoke about this before, your time at Impact, right? So Impact was an agency, right? And then you then changed that agency into a media company, which then had like an agency inside it, right? So your strategy was to like you had a company that was already creating quite a bit of content. How do we then make the content the focus rather than the agency and try to create demand by having your own media outlet, let's say? So tell me a little bit about that process. I know we spoke about it before, but it's super interesting. And how did you come to that? How did it go?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't claim to be the one who originated the vision there. The CEO of Impact, Bob Ruffalo, had read Joe Pulizzi's book, Killing Marketing, which I have somewhere back here on my bookshelf. And that book is all about really this thesis that marketing, which has always been seen as a cost center for companies, which goes back to our earlier conversation around budgets, should really be seen as a profit center. And there are companies out there that have done this exceptionally well. They've achieved negative CAC, for example, like Freight Waves is kind of famous for this, where they built a media engine and generated so much income from it that the cost to acquire a customer was negative. Like they were making money based on the income from their media property. That's the dream. And I think, and Bob had this vision of doing it. And when I joined Impact because I sold my agency to them. They acquired us. And I originally wasn't going to stay, but I loved this vision. And I was like, I want to be a part of that. And so I was really fortunate to do this at a time when very few companies were thinking about it. So we did this for, when I was there, it was 2017 to 2019. And we built out a 5,000 member marketing community. We built a tremendously robust editorial team at Impact. That was the team that I managed that was publishing, I think it was like 2 or 3 articles a day. We had a newsletter we were putting out that went out 3 times a week. And I mean, the results were pretty incredible. We went during that time from 350,000 visits to the website per month to almost 700,000 visits. Like
Wow.
this is for what had been a small agency. We had 5,000 people in the community. We had more than 30,000 people subscribe to the newsletter. We also had a conference that we started that attracted hundreds of people to it. And, it did produce like genuine revenue for the company. So top line revenue grew by almost 250% within 2 years.
Wow.
As we built that media engine. So it was incredibly successful. 100% of the company's pipeline was inbound.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, it's an amazing story. How long did it take you to do it, to like get from that transition?
Well, we started seeing results pretty quickly. So in the first year, I think looking back at my data, we grew top line revenue by about 54% in the first 12 months. And then it really ramped up in the second year. So, but we were aggressive in the volume of content we were putting out. And it wasn't like a slow ramp there. We went from having, I don't remember how many actually articles we published in the beginning per week, but we quickly got to 2 to 3 per day through our editorial team. And then after we launched the newsletter, it really took off. We had an amazing writer too, which helped. Our editorial director was this woman, Liz Moorhead, who now consults, and she's incredible. And she wrote the newsletter and developed a tremendous following by imbuing it with her personal brand, which I think is something you see a lot more now. And if you pay attention to Pavilion, you'll see we're doing the exact same play with our newsletter called Top Line, which is written by Asad Zaman, who is a member of Pavilion, and he writes the editorial. Now our newsletter is once a week. It's not 3 times a week, which I think Asad would probably kill me if I asked him to do 3 times a week. But the whole idea is the same. It's like, let's create something that just is really focused on delivering value. It's not about self-promotion at all. We really don't talk a lot about Pavilion. We're just trying to educate the reader and provide insights that they wouldn't find anywhere else. And he's an unbelievable writer that really takes it seriously. So definitely recommend checking out Top Line newsletter.
Amazing stuff. Amazing, Kathleen. Thanks for that. So we're just on time now. Where can people find you?
So you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. I am very active there, and just mention that you heard this interview, and I'm happily going to connect with you. You can also find me at joinpavilion.com, where you can also learn more about Pavilion.
Perfect. Kathleen, thanks a million. It's been great speaking with you again. And hopefully have you on again at some point in the future.
Thanks, Andy.
Cheers. Guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Tune in again next week for more great content. Thanks, Kathleen.